The circle of competence is a powerful mental model that can help you leverage your strengths and capitalize on them, make better decisions with confidence and clarity, and also find your ideal path in life and the type of work that you should pursue. But more important than that, it helps you avoid being stupid. When you operate with your circle of competence in mind, you're less likely to do something out of overconfidence and ego that will likely fail. In his book, Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday gives us insight into why understanding our circle of competence is so crucial. He shares the story of Ulysses S. Grant. I think that's how you say it, Ulysses. Ulysses S. Grant and William Sherman. At the end of the Civil War, as Holiday writes, they were two of the most respected and important men in America. They had vast amounts of power and freedom, and they could basically do whatever they wanted. Sherman hated politics, and he repeatedly declined requests for office. But Grant, despite having zero prior experience in politics, chose to become president. He was elected by a landslide and then presided over one of the worst administrations in American history. See, Grant was not suited for the role. He was far outside his circle of competence, and he, along with the public, paid the price. History is filled with examples of people just like Grant. People who have had initial success in one industry or area or field and then naively believe that they can replicate it in another unrelated field. So ignoring your circle of competence is unwise and it's potentially catastrophic. But how do you know what your circle of competence is? Also, how do you develop it? How do you grow it, expand it? Finally, isn't it a good thing to challenge oneself? I mean, if you're always operating in your circle of competence, then aren't you just playing the easy game and avoiding learning anything new or challenging yourself? In this video, I'm going to be answering all of those questions. You can think of this as the ultimate guide to the circle of competence and how to develop it. We'll begin by defining the mental model, defining what circle of competence is and why it's so useful as a mental model. Next, we'll discuss how knowing your circle of competence can help you make better decisions, be prolific, and build personal leverage. Lastly, we'll explore how to grow and expand your circle of competence. Now, there is an article version of this video. You can find it at the link below on my newsletter. Make sure to check that out if you prefer to read or you just want a written reference. All right, so let's dive in, starting with what is a circle of competence. I'll start with this quote from Charlie Munger. He says, "You have to figure out what your own aptitudes are. If you play games where other people have the aptitudes and you don't, you're going to lose. And that's as close to certain as any prediction that you can make. You have to figure out where you've got an edge, and you've got to play within your own circle of competence. Your circle of competence is what you are good at, what you have an aptitude towards. It's what you know well. It's where you have an edge. Your circle of competence does not include everything that you know or every skill that you have. It includes what you are competent at, what you are able to do successfully and efficiently, or what you have deep knowledge in. To give you an example, I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 6 months now, and I know the basics. I'm more competent than the untrained person, but I wouldn't call myself competent. I wouldn't put this skill inside my circle of competence yet because I've been doing it for 6 months. Like, I'm just not that good. So it's somewhere outside my circle of competence. Likewise, I know basic statistic modeling and algebra, but I would not place mathematics inside my circle of competence. It's just not something I'm great at, but I can write well, better and faster than most people. I've been doing it for 14 years. It's something I'm competent at. I can synthesize information well and teach it fairly well. And so I'd put these things inside my circle of competence because I can do them successfully and efficiently better than most people can. Now, it's important to understand that the circle of competence is a mental model to help you think better. It's not a literal representation of how life actually works. So in reality, your circle looks nothing like a circle at all. Like, a circle has hard, definitive edges. Real life does not. Skill acquisition is not some binary thing. You don't flip a switch one day and become competent in something. You become more competent on the spectrum from incompetence to competence over time. And it's important to remember this because it's just a model, like I said. And some people who learn mental models or come across them, they take them extremely literally and they see them as like laws, essentially. Or they misunderstand the model completely. So for example, someone might learn about the circle of competence and then fall into the trap of staying in the center of their circle of competence all the time, never venturing out, never learning anything new. And this is fine if you're doubling down on something and you're trying to reach mastery in a certain skill, like you're trying to become a world-class artist. But a lot of people will just rigidly stay inside their circle of competence because they're afraid of failure and they are afraid of being challenged. All this to say, it's not that the circle of competence is some hard boundary that we can never pass through. Rather, it's a model that helps us make better decisions and pursue the right goals. And you should stay mostly inside your circle of competence because inside it is just massive amounts of leverage and aptitude and efficiency. When you venture too far outside your circle, you start to lose these things and you often end up competing with someone who does have them and they will beat you at the game. They know best. So you shouldn't view staying inside your circle of competence as a limiter because it's not. Being committed to leveraging your strengths and aptitudes while avoiding things that you aren't good at is not you limiting yourself. It's you being smart and intentional. Now, there is this kind of like circle outside your circle of competence, right? There's this outer layer of useful skills and knowledge. These are things that are useful to you, but you may not be extremely competent at. For example, I would place financial and accounting skill and knowledge outside my circle of competence, but I know enough about it for it to be useful in business, or at least the type of businesses that I'm building. I wouldn't feel comfortable being a fractional CFO because I'm not skilled enough, but I am comfortable reading through P&L statements and balance sheets and making decisions with that data. This outer layer can't be ignored because a lot of what you know and a lot of the skills you have exist outside your circle of competence, but very close to it. So that's something to keep in mind. There are some things you know and some skills you have that may not be inside your direct circle of competence, but you know enough about them to leverage them. One of the biggest benefits to understanding your circle of competence is that it helps you avoid being stupid. Another quote from Charlie Munger. He says, "It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent." Most of us aim towards goals and aspirations. We try to be intelligent, like Munger says. But quite often, it's a lot better to think about how you can avoid bad outcomes than trying to optimize towards good outcomes. For example, let's say that you want to lower your chances of getting into a car crash. You could try to become the best, most competent driver, or you could instead focus on avoiding mistakes and avoiding being a stupid driver. The latter is a better mental reframe because it illuminates the potential risks much more than the former. And in making decisions, growing a business, building your life, building your career, knowing where your circle of competence is helps you avoid being stupid more than anything else. And so when you're enticed by a goal that's far outside of your circle of competence, you can see it for what it is, which is likely a big risk, something that's probably stupid to pursue. And so you act accordingly, while the person who's trying to be smart and intelligent might trick themselves into thinking that they can pull it off, only to fail. Now let's look at circle of competence humility versus stagnation and limiting beliefs, because the natural pushback here is, well, that's just a limiting belief, like I can do whatever I want, I'm capable of anything, so on and so forth. It is important not to mistake your circle of competence for what may be limiting beliefs. The truth is, if you want to achieve something in life, you will naturally have to venture outside your circle of competence. The point is that you do this in a strategic way, choosing the path that leverages your existing competencies instead of the one that's just completely unrelated and completely outside your circle of competence. For example, I've never built a service-based business with dozens of employees. I have a theoretical idea on how it could be done because I've seen other people do it, but I wouldn't call myself a competent manager, and there's certain skills that I don't have. right, that would be required to do that. And let's say I wanted to build this service business. Well, I could easily rationalize and psych myself out of doing this by telling myself that I don't have the skills and it's outside my circle of competency and so on and so forth. But the truth is I probably can, because I've built businesses in the past. I've offered services as a consultant. I've had employees, I've managed small teams, and it's not that big of a leap. And so in this case, psyching myself out, it would be a form of a limiting belief, because it's close enough to my circle of competence that I can expand into it, as we'll look at later in this video. But let's say on the other hand that I want to start a competitor to SpaceX. The only reason I would pursue that is pure delusional ego. And in this case, understanding that it is light years, little pun there, away from my circle of competence is not a limiting belief. It's just avoiding being stupid. And I know someone watching this is going to be like, yeah, Sam, but that's still a limiting belief. Like if everyone thought like you do, there wouldn't be a SpaceX. We wouldn't have companies like this. And you might be right. But unfortunately, there are many unhappy, broken people out there who have tried to do extremely ambitious things outside their circle of competence and failed miserably. You just don't hear about them because of survivorship bias. And so I personally like playing games where I have a high chance of winning. Okay, so how do you grow? How do you expand your circle of competence? Well, there are two ways to grow your circle of competence. The first is to expand the overall circle and acquire new competencies. The second is to expand and deepen the existing competencies inside your circle. So we have our general circle of competence, which houses our smaller circles, the individual skills and competencies. And some of these are bigger and more developed than others, right? Like you might be better at writing than presenting on video, or you might be better at programming than, front-end web design or something like that. The goal is to put yourself into a game where you're forced to both expand and deepen your circle at the same time. One game that forces this expansion and deepening is business, because you're forced to develop competencies under pressure in real time, and it's not theoretical. It's not abstract. It's business. It exists in the real world, and the stakes also exist. But regardless of whether you are in business or not, you should be both deepening and expanding your circle of competence. It's not one or the other, unless you're trying to be a specialist, like you're trying to be a neurosurgeon. Probably makes more sense to just like double down on your existing competency instead of trying to learn history or learn something else, because there's an opportunity cost to everything. But I'm going to assume most people watching this want to be the generalist specialist, the T-shaped individual that I talked about in my video on meta skills. Now, where do you start if your circle of competence is small? Maybe you've watched up until this point and you've thought, this sounds good, but I don't have a circle of competence. Well, you absolutely do have a circle of competence. Everybody does. Some have bigger circles than others, based on the time they've put in and the effort they've put in. But I get it. Maybe you're young and you're not sure what your unique skill set is, what your unique superpower is. Maybe you just don't really have one yet. You have some areas of knowledge, you know some things, but there's not much depth. If you're in this position, you have a small and shallow circle of competence. My recommendation is to start by developing a single skill or area of knowledge, instead of just trying to expand in all directions at once. For example, let's say you want to become an expert digital marketer. It would be most efficient to pick one skill, let's say copywriting, get good at it, and then expand from there. The less efficient approach would be try to expand your circle in multiple different directions and try to learn 6 digital marketing skills all at once. The reason I recommend just one skill to begin with is because first, it forces you to develop the meta skills of focus and persistence, which you will need if you want to continue to expand and deepen your circle of competence over time. Secondly, you need to make money. Everyone does. And if you can start by building an income producing skill, it takes a lot of pressure off you. Lastly, it mitigates overthinking and analysis paralysis. When you pick something and commit to it for a time period, you're not swept in different directions, thinking about how do I best expand my circle of competence. I'm going to make a dedicated video on this topic at some point, but if you are in this position, What I recommend is that you just pick a skill to develop and you commit to a minimum of 6 months of learning and doing. Have a bias towards action and practice instead of theory, and then do at least 1 hour per day, ideally 3. Most people underestimate how much competency can be built in 6 months, but that's because very few people are consistent enough to actually put in 1 to 3 hours every day for a month, let alone 6. So if you can manage to do that, you will be surprised at how much you learn and how competent you become. But let's say you already have a circle of competence and you want to expand it. Well, how do you do that? There's 3 sort of principles and strategies that I recommend for doing this. The first is that organic proximity is one of the best guides to figure out what to learn next. Imagine that there's this sea of skills and areas of knowledge, and your circle of competence is floating somewhere in this sea. There are other skills floating around, some are close by, some are far away. The ones that are close by are more closely related to your existing circle of competence. Now let's say that you want to absorb one of these competencies. You want to pull it into your circle. You need to expand your circle in order to do this, which takes time, energy, and effort. Attempting to absorb a new competency that's far, far away from your existing circle is very difficult. It will take longer than absorbing the one that is close to you. There are a number of reasons why this is. Namely, you don't have the foundational knowledge, the mental map, the related knowledge required to quickly pick up the new competency that's unrelated or distantly related to what you already know. But the ones in close proximity are the ones you should absorb. It's more efficient, it's easier, and it takes less time to do so. And this is kind of what you'd be doing if you didn't think about the process. Like, it would likely happen organically if you're a curious person, because you'll learn one thing and then it will kind of like trigger this new thing that you want to learn that's automatically related. To give you an example of this, let's say that you are 1 year in to building your first business. It's a web design agency. You make websites for small businesses that lack an online presence. Now, you're the only full-time person, but you engage with the odd contractor and freelancer to help with the work when things get busy. You've already developed a bunch of competencies. You've got the skill of web design. You've got basic sales skills, expectation management, business admin 101, like bookkeeping, managing expenses, basic delegation. You can define work scope. You've done some outsourcing. And in the sea of competencies, there are a few that are pretty close by to your existing circle. They might be team building and management, allowing you to scale and take on more clients. SEO skills, allowing you to offer another product line or add on to your existing service. Or multi-step sales cycle management, allowing you to take on higher paying clients. The obvious step is to start absorbing these competencies through taking the actions required to do so. But what you wouldn't do in this situation is try to expand and absorb competencies that are further away or just don't make sense in light of your goals. For example, you don't need to learn advanced financial engineering with your business model. You don't need to understand the detailed intricacies of supply chain management. These things are far away from your existing circle, and the opportunity cost of learning and developing them is high. So look at what's already close to your circle, think about what would happen organically anyway, and then head in that direction. Don't overthink it. One caveat to this is that it can be useful to pull mental models and ideas from far outside your circle of competency to help you think laterally and open your mind. For example, you might be a creative marketer who studies some basic mental models from engineering, which is kind of a distant field. And you pick up a few ideas that help you think more creatively about what you're already competent at. This is a good thing to do. But what I'm saying is that it usually doesn't make sense to try to develop competency in these far away fields, unless you desperately want to. So, for example, I love studying basic concepts from engineering. I like the mental models. It helps me think better about business, but I don't think I'll ever develop significant competency in that field. The opportunity cost of doing so for me is too high, but the mental models are enough for what I'm trying to do. The second strategy here is to pay attention to the bottlenecks. The most useful way to expand your circle of competence is to do so out of necessity. When you're working towards a goal, let's say it's building a business, you're going to encounter bottlenecks along the way. Sometimes the bottleneck is something that you can pay someone to fix. Often, it's something that you have to overcome yourself. And often it requires that you develop new competencies to fix it. So ask yourself, in light of the goal that you're working towards, where are the bottlenecks? Are there any obvious ones? Are there non-obvious ones that I'm choosing to ignore? I remember years ago when I was running my online course business, EDM Prod, I was faced with a big bottleneck, which was that I was extremely busy and I needed to hire someone. That was the bottleneck. The business was capped by my input. So I had to develop some competency around hiring people. I had no choice if I wanted to grow it further and reach my goal. And the third strategy here for expanding your circle of competence is to do skill acquisition sprints. A sprint is a set period of time where you focus intensely on acquiring the new competency. It's best to align this with a project or a clearly defined goal. So for example, I vastly improved my writing ability when I wrote a book in 30 days. I set a goal for myself that I would write and launch a book in 30 days. And if I just set a vague goal to write for 30 days, chances are I would be much less likely to stick with it. Maybe you need to shore up your sales skills. And so you set up a sprint where you decide to cold call 30 businesses every day for a month. You push yourself into the deep end and you focus on volume. Or maybe you want to get really good at presenting on video, on camera. And so you decide to set up a sprint where you publish a YouTube video every day for 21 days. If you have the capacity and the time to do this, then it is well worth it. You will make rapid progress. And if you combine it with the two concepts I talked about earlier, the organic proximity and the removal of bottlenecks, then you become an extremely effective human being. By the way, this is one of the reasons I created Work Sprint. It's a 21-day group challenge with accountability. Everyone has their own project or focus, and you spend a minimum of 90 minutes a day focusing on it. So make sure to check that out at worksprint.co, and there'll be a link in the description. So we've looked at how to expand the sort of overall circle of competence, but how do we deepen and expand existing competencies? Because sometimes the answer is not to expand into new competencies, it's to double down on existing ones. So you never stop learning, but you just structure your learning for maximum leverage. And one way to think about this is in terms of opportunity cost. Let's say that you're pretty competent at copywriting and landing page design. Let's say you're in the top 10% of copywriters in terms of competency. And you're looking at these other competencies close by to you. One of them might be sales skills, right? And so now you think through it. If I improved my copywriting ability by 25%, would that give me a better result over the next 6 months than learning sales? The answer is probably not, especially if you lack sales skills right now. From a strict financial perspective, sales skills are going to enable you to make more income from your existing competencies of copywriting and design because you're able to better pitch your offer and answer objections. So the answer in this case is to expand to new competencies. But let's say you're writing a newsletter on AI, like everyone else is at the moment, and you've experienced rapid growth and people like your content, and you kind of want to get into video, but the traction that the newsletter has gained is just astounding to you. In this case, doubling down on your competency of research and writing and editing will likely reap more benefits than developing the competency of video, recording, editing, and so forth, at least right now. If you've got the time to do both, then do both. But if you don't, then the opportunity cost of expanding your overall circle instead of deepening and expanding your existing competencies in writing is very high. Anyway, when it comes to deepening your existing competencies, there's 3 tactics that I think are useful. The first is the beginner's mind, or the beginner's mindset. The moment you think you're great at something is the moment you start stagnating. The beginner's mind means approaching a subject with openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions, as if you were a beginner. And this helps you deepen existing competencies. For example, let's say you've been writing for a decade and you're pretty good at it. Embracing the beginner's mind might look like revisiting the basics, as stupid as it feels to do so. You'll likely see them in a new light, these fundamental concepts and fundamental principles that you learned long ago. It means seeking feedback from others. We do this often when we're starting out and we're learning something, But as we get better and as we become competent, we tend to not do it as much. But there's always someone who's better than you. So go and ask them for feedback. It means that you never stop learning. Once you reach a certain level of competency, it's easy to stop actively learning, right? And if you've been writing for 10 years, then you're probably quite good. You're in the top 5%. But there's always room to improve. There's always the top 4% and the top 3% and the top 1%. The second tactic is deliberate practice, something I've talked about before. It's popularized by Anders Ericsson. Deliberate practice is the fastest way to gain expertise and mastery in a skill. There are a few key components to deliberate practice, and I recommend reading Ericsson's book if you want to learn more. But the basics are that you need specific goals. You need to break down complex skills into specific components that can be practiced. You need frequent feedback, ideally from a coach or a mentor, someone who can tell you where you're going wrong and where you can improve. You need full focus and concentration. Think deep work. You want to be intensely focused and in flow. And then it's about repetition, just putting in the reps, doing the volume. The third and final tactic is to get 1% better. So when you're deepening competencies, one temptation is to try to learn everything all at once, right? Which results in feeling overwhelmed and often causes people to give up. The other temptation is one that I mentioned earlier. It's to coast, to not really improve at all, to just like do stuff that you already know. And the 1% better approach is exactly what you think it is. It's to get 1% better every day or with every iteration or everything you finish. In an interview with Lex Friedman, Mr. Beast said this as advice for beginners trying to grow on YouTube. All you need to do is make 100 videos and improve something every time. Do that. And then on your 101st video, we'll start talking. That idea of doing a lot of volume and improving something every time is one of the best ways to deepen competencies, both new and existing. So to wrap this up, we looked at what a circle of competence is and why it's such an important mental model. We then looked at how to grow your circle of competence, both expanding the overall circle and deepening the existing competencies inside of it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you like this video, please leave a comment below, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.